I am really praying that this is working right now. Today we're breaking down how to make a sad indie pop song, aka my song, This Town.
Should I sacrifice my joy or just play it coy to keep everyone happy?
I released This Town a week ago. I thought I would like to show you how I came about producing this song. So I wanted to make like a coming of age, like nostalgic feeling song, and I feel like this song perfectly encapsulates that whole feeling of like nostalgia. Like I wanted it to sound like the indie music I've been listening to for years, and like specifically the indie music that I was listening to leading up to moving out of Texas and moving where I currently live. So let's just jump right in and break it down. My computer has given me trust issues really badly, so like I'm gonna keep checking every now and then just to make sure it's still screen recording, that the audio is still working, that my camera is still going, because the amount of trials and tribulations I have been through trying to film some of these videos is insane. So I originally wrote this song in 2020 and I produced a full demo for it, and I'll probably release that demo at some point, but it started off with a simple guitar riff. And that repeats basically the entire song. There's only a few parts where it cuts out, where I wanted to add some dynamic changes, like the bridge and the third pre-chorus specifically, and then the outro, it's just not there, but for the rest of the song it is. And it's just like the main melody that drives the whole thing. And from those, I found the chords for the song. And the entire song, it's just one chord, which is B major, but I changed the chord progression by adding different suspensions to the last two chords. So you can see it's just the same chord, but I changed the suspensions of it to give it a different feel for the last two chords. What essentially started as just chords and a melody had to be turned into a full song, ended up adding a counter melody with a second electric guitar. And that counter melody ended up adding so much to the song that it really needed to give it just a little bit of extra energy and extra life. Okay, I just fixed the audio and I'm gonna have a mental breakdown actually. Okay, so now that we have just the baseline melody and chords built out, it needed to have some layers. So I think it's 2 measures or 2 bars, I wanted to add a new element. So I took a sample of the main guitars and I reversed them, added some reverb, and that reverb is just super wet, not a whole lot of dry. And then a fruity stereo enhancer. It comes with FL Studio, but basically it's going to widen it out so it feels like it's coming from both ears. And then a chorus, just to give it a little bit of metallic, just a cool effect that I really liked. And it helps to widen that sound even more with the stereo enhancer underneath it. And then I added a gate effect. And then just another reverb on top of it. And what that does is it gives us this really cool reverse effect. So notice how it sounds so much fuller and there's a little bit more dreaminess to it. Next, we jump into the chorus, and with the electric guitar, I just added some octaves to the chords. And that just, fills up the space a little bit more, fills up those higher frequencies, because I'm singing pretty low in this song. So those higher frequencies needed to be filled out so that the mids and the lows aren't so overpopulated. And then this voice stem that I have actually came from whenever I produced this song on my old computer. It's a plugin called Sonatina Orchestra, and it's only available on Windows. I've tried to get the Mac version to work on my new computer, and it just doesn't. It had this choir preset that I used, and it just plays this one note the whole time, because the whole song is just one chord, but it creates this drone. And I just really liked the way that sounded in the original mix, and so I decided to bring that stem in from my old computer onto my new computer for this song, reproduced 4 years later. I'm so pleased right now that the audio is working on my computer. I just checked it and it's still working. I am so happy right now, and I don't want to jinx it by talking too much about it, so I'm just going to keep going. And then on top of that choir, I brought in another choir plugin. All that choir is, something's wrong with my labs apparently. I need to go fix that later. Anyways, it's the choir long preset from Labs. There was another pad in the post chorus. And all it's doing is playing the chords. There's no melodic elements of it or anything. I just wanted it to fully build out those chords. And I love the sound of that synth. I know that it sounds really cheap, but I kind of liked the way that it sounded for this song. In a different song, I probably wouldn't have gravitated towards that sound, because pads that sound cheaper or older just don't fit the vibe of most of the music I make. I just really liked the way that it sounded, so it had to go in there. And then of course, the strings, which were also from Labs. Labs makes a great all-purpose plugin, so for any starting out producer, I highly recommend getting Labs, because it's got an orchestra, it's got all kinds of different drums, a piano, several pianos actually that sound incredible. And that is where so much of the cinematic feeling of this song comes in. I wanted it to feel like the ending of a coming-of-age movie, or like the climax of a coming-of-age movie, and I feel like those strings really brought it that cinematic element that it really needed to get there. Then for the keys, to build out the keys, I added a piano, of course. There wasn't a whole lot of effort put in to make that piano sound realistic, because it's so tucked away in the mix that all I really wanted it for it to do was to kind of add that piano feeling to it, and then to also just build out the chords. Once again, layers are so important when you're producing music, and so getting those layers in that just build out the chords or make the chorus sound more full, make the verses sound dynamically different to the chorus, the post-chorus, the pre-chorus, all of that should have a distinct separation to it. And then, of course, what I originally considered to be the melodic element whenever I produced this song in 2020 was a xylophone. And since then, I'd changed my mind on that, because the xylophone is so tucked away in the mix. So all it really does is just add a little bit of ear candy. So it's just playing the notes of the chords that it's hitting. It kind of sounds like the announcement noises that they did back in the 80s, in school, on school PAs, the principal would be like, do 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 do, and then do the morning announcements. That's what this sounds like. I couldn't help myself. The pop music diva inside of me just jumped out, and I had to put these arpeggiated bells in. So what you'll notice is I didn't actually add it as many times as it plays. What I did was I played those notes, and then to give it a like bouncy feeling, I added a delay. So that delay is actually what's playing the second melody. So without the delay, and then there's just a bunch of reverb and stuff added onto that. And then there's an auto pan, which makes it go around from different ears. And more synths on top of the other pads. So these Junos, a Juno is my favorite synth of all time. I wish that I had an analog Juno. Unfortunately, all I have is Serum, which I shouldn't complain about having Serum because so many people want Serum and it's very expensive, but I'm financing it so that I don't have to pay the full, like, what is it, like $300 for it. And it has these really great Juno presets. And what that synth is doing is it's just mimicking the counter melody that we played on the guitar. And then this synth pluck is just playing its own melody. And then these chords, they're kind of just there to fill out that space, add a little bit more high end, because there is a lot of like shimmeriness to that synth that I love. The bass is just tracked with a bass guitar. And once again, it's mimicking that counter melody that we played on the electric guitar. And then I layered it in the post-chorus with an 808 to give it a more full sound. So moving on to some more layers. So in the pads, I wanted to add these other layers. So there's a drone. There's two drones actually. And they just really give it that shimmer that it needs. And those play pretty much the entire song because I needed to fill out the space. It was very simple in the verses and stuff compared to what everything else was. And so just to fill out that space a little bit more, I added those drones. And they were kind of just a last minute afterthought, but I threw them in and it just added it filled all the spaces that needed to be filled. Possibly what I get asked about most on this song from a musician standpoint is how I did the drums. So the drums, I have not changed since they came out. I did some mixing adjustments, I added a couple layers to it, but the baseline drums are exactly the same as the 2020 demo. Whenever I was 14 producing this song, I came up with this drum pattern and I did not want to change it. So during the pre-chorus, it's a very simple pattern. And all that is this kick sample and that snare sample. And what I did for the processing on those, so the kick and the snare are both routed to the drum bus, and the drum bus has a compressor on it because without the compressor, it would sound very, very chaotic. So then I add the compressor. And it's a pretty harsh compressor. It's almost a brick wall. You can hear the reverb on that snare jumps back up after the snare's finished playing. And I liked that. I wanted that to happen because if I bring the gain up on all of it, you will really hear that snare ring out with the reverb. I feel like a lot of producers would tell you not to do that, but music is so subjective, and I really liked the way that that turned out for me. So the kick and the snare are now playing at the same level, and that reverb is echoing off behind the snare just as I liked it. Then I added a delay to fill up some more space with those drums. And then lastly, I have to have some reverb on the drums. The majority of this track is just drenched in reverb. Modern me wouldn't do this, but past me did, and modern me didn't feel like erasing this mistake. But I did all of the drums in one playlist clip. I think that's what this is called. Why am I blanking on it? And usually I would track the kick, and then I would track the snare, and then I would track the hat and the other hat and the claps, and I would track them all separately. But in 2020, younger me didn't care about exporting stems like that. I came up with this drum line back in 2020. So what I did is I have that normal kick sample, and then because it's the chorus and it's going to be so much louder, I needed something to make that kick really stand through, so I added a layer kick. So that kick just adds a little bit more power and punch to the first kick. And then the snare is still there, but to layer the snare, I added a clap. And then a second clap. And that second clap is the one that you hear most predominantly throughout the song. Those just really give the downbeat that punch that it needs. That clap, all that's on it is a big reverb and then some delay. It's two different hat patterns. So there's this plain one that I ripped from a drum loop with that had a lot of vinyl record it had a lot of vinyl record crackling on it, and so I liked the way that hat sounded, and I just pulled that hat sound right out of that drum loop and looped it and used it throughout the rest of the song. And that's routed to the main drum bus, so it's also compressed with the rest of the drums, and it's got that little bit of delay on it that you can hear. And the second hat is a trap hat that I wanted to add because I don't remember what my reference was at the time, but I was listening to a lot of hip hop music and indie music, and I kind of just blended the two. So this is what happened back in 2020. And so basically the entire drum loop is the main drum loop, the foreground drum loop is like this. And then to give the downbeat a little bit more of an epic feeling, I took that clap that we delayed and I reversed it without any of the effects, and then turned it down so it just gives a little bit more oomph. And you can hear the difference on that fourth clap where there's no reverse clap. So it sounds way more intense and full. And I really liked that. I liked that it didn't get that resolution until the very last clap. Then I added this background drum beat. Typical Boots and Cats background beat. Very pop, but it just added a little bit more ear candy that needed to be there. And some loops. So I have this loop. And that's just to fill up some more space in the drums, add a little bit more ear candy, and then this third loop. And then this second loop comes in later in the song, but it's a tambourine loop that I felt really needed to be there. Very simple, you would hear it in any Max Martin song. Then I layered the snare with a much more heavy snare because I felt like the snares were getting lost in the rest of the mix. There's just a ton of reverb on that. That's really the only processing I did to that. Cymbals, of course, are a necessity. So I took this crash, I reversed it, made a sweep out of it. And then I needed a transition clap. So there's just this really big one that plays on the downbeat. You'll hear that effect in like Jack Antonoff songs, Max Martin song, basically any big pop song that has like a really dramatic chorus. So here's how it sounds with the rest of the drums. You can hear how it really gave a big transition into the next part of the song, which is the post-chorus. In the background of the chorus, we're going to move on to the SFX. I added these chants. And all I really did for the mixing on those was, where are they? So I added a limiter to make them all play at the same volume, and then a stereo enhancer to make them pan out to both ears, delay, a reverb, and then I EQ'd a lot of the frequencies that were annoying me. This is something that I got from Lana Del Rey songs. What she did on the Born to Die album a lot to fill out some space was add chants in the background. So like you'll hear it in songs like Born to Die, Off to the Races, Diet Mountain Dew, Radio, Dark Paradise, basically any song on Born to Die, there's chants in the background. Then as a further transitional effect, I took that reversed guitar and I put it here right before each transition. And it just gives a little bit of a pulling effect, same with this piano. A great way to do transitions is to just take a main instrument and reverse it and put it right before that instrument comes in the mix. This buzzing effect, I remember hearing in Idle Town by Conan Gray, and that's such a nostalgic song, and I don't know what he was trying to do, but I liked it. I don't know if it was like a bass effect, if it was some sort of a pad or chord or something. I don't know. All it sounded like to me was some white noise. So I just added that in here. And all that is a parametric EQ sweeping off a lot of the low frequencies, and then a kickstart, which is a side chaining effect. So it adds that pulsing effect to it. And then for impacts, this is what I've got. And without that that impact that comes in before the post-chorus, this is what it sounds like. So it's 3 different sounds that I layered together to make it sound like one big boom right into the post-chorus or the chorus or wherever those effects are placed. And that impact, it actually plays right after this clap that we added. So it just makes sure that there's not so much empty space, and I liked the sound of it. It was really grandiose and really, it took up a lot of the higher frequencies. It's a lot of like white noise, and so I really liked that it had that element to it to transition to such a punchy post-chorus. Sonic contrast is something that's been really trendy lately. You'll hear it in songs like Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo. You'll hear it in Lethal Woman by Dove Cameron. Songs that have become popular recently have a lot of sonic contrast, and that's very important when creating a dynamic and engaging song. From there, it's just a lot of adding stuff that you think needs to be added, and that's not a whole lot. I added an electric piano towards the end. And I added I took this sample of me singing, oh, oh, oh. I sang it on pitch whenever I recorded it, not right now though. And that's pretty tucked away in the mix, but all that the processing is on that is some auto-tune just to make sure that it only plays the pitch that I wanted. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I bypassed all frequencies but the note B, so that it would only tune that vocal to the note B. I added some EQ, a limiter, and then reverb and delay. And then one of my close collaborators, Brian Cox, he added this guitar solo that's pretty tucked away in the mix, but it plays throughout the whole song. I think we took this in one take. He's just playing around on the guitar the entire time. And so that's like way pushed back. And then towards the very end, he started playing this solo that reminded me of different like rock songs from the 80s, different pop songs from the 80s. And I just wanted to turn that solo up for the very last part so that we have that guitar coming in and like really adding this beautiful melody that we were missing. It's just so beautiful. I'm so happy with how well that turned out. Lastly, we're going to get into the vocals. This is the beast of the project, and this is usually what I like. Usually the last touches that I'm adding on a song are to the vocals. So with these vocals, originally they had like all the low mid frequencies cut out, and it sounded like I was talking through a radio, and I hated that. It sounded so low quality. It sounded amateur. A lot of people like that sound for indie music, and for me, I didn't feel like it was needed for this song. Maybe in a couple, I don't know, it could be weeks, it could be years before I change my mind on that. For this song, I wanted it to feel very forward and very punchy.
I don't belong in this place. This place is getting old. Should've never taken pictures because I miss it all.
I recorded it on this microphone that I'm currently using right now, the Rode NT1A, and the lead vocals, they have some auto-tune on them. I think I just used like a natural-ish auto-tune. The retune speed isn't super high, so it doesn't sound, you know, like a Ty Dolla $ign song. I used Maximus as a de-esser because my S's are really intense sometimes. I used a compressor just to make sure that all my vocals stay at the same level the whole time. I used a sound goodizer, and I would almost never use this effect on my vocals, especially in a song that I'm currently releasing. But for this song, I felt like it needed that extra pump. It needed a little bit more bass. So I added the sound goodizer, and then just a simple EQ on top of all that, just to cut out some of the frequencies that were bothering me. It did turn down the unity quite a bit, but I mean, it's fine because, you know, the rest of the mix was pretty quiet, and I can just turn up the gain on the compressor if I feel like there's too much volume being lost because of the EQ. And a lot of people would start with an EQ and like put like EQ, compressor, de-esser, and then reverb and delay. And that's just not how I did it for this song. I mean, you can see over here on the layer vocals, that's what I did, but not on the lead vocal. The lead vocal needed a different set of effects just to make it stand out a little bit more. Then for the reverb, there's a plate reverb.
I don't belong in this place.
There's a hall reverb, which I turned up quite a bit in the post-production. And then the first delay that I added gets automated, so it turns up halfway through the first verse.
Should've never taken pictures because I miss it all.
And then on that delay, I added a parametric EQ, so it sounds like it's coming through a telephone. And then I added a Maximus to cut out some of the S's, because some of my S's were even more prominent in the delay than in the lead vocal, which was weird to me. I'm still not sure how that happened because I cut out so many of the frequencies, the high frequencies with this EQ, but I had to do it with this Maximus too. And then a limiter, just a sidechain, so that whenever the lead vocal is playing, the delay is not. So I'll show you that.
I have friends all over the place. I can't keep them all.
So you can hear how that delay gets louder whenever the lead vocal is not playing. But whenever the lead vocal is playing, the delay gets quieter, so it's not overpowering the lead vocal, because it can get real messy and real distracting really quick. And then I added a second delay. Some would call this a slapback delay, but I don't think it's quick enough to actually be a slapback delay. It's more just like a radio effect. It adds that little bit of nostalgia to it. So if you hear it with the lead,
I have friends all over the place. I can't keep 'em all.
So it's real quiet tucked back in there, but I feel like it added just a little bit more nostalgia and filled up some of those higher mid frequencies that we were missing with the first delay. You can see it's EQ'd out to sound pretty thin up there. And then I just added a reverb on top of it. This track just needed the most reverb. So that's really it. The layers and the harmonies don't have any delay, just some pretty intense reverb on them. That's it for like the vocal processing part of it. The vocal layering was what I really wanted to get into because I'm very happy with how this turned out. In the 2020 demo, it was pretty messy, and I feel like I perfected it in this song. I don't want to say perfection because I don't think that any song I've ever made is perfect besides Prom King, but we'll get into that later. I am very, very happy with how the vocals came out on this song. So let me break down how I did the vocal layering. There are 2 layers of me singing the exact same melody as the lead.
Am I a fool for faking it?
Those layers are just me singing the exact same part as the lead melody, and they are panned out to either side so that it fills up that space. Then I added 2 harmonies on top of that.
Am I a fool for faking it?
And those are panned out to either side, but not 100%, so it splits the difference between the sonic space of the lead vocals and the layers. And then for the chorus, I added this higher octave.
Should I sacrifice my joy or just play it coy to keep everyone happy?
And the ending there is a little bit different to how I sing the lead vocals. So if you listen to them together.
Should I sacrifice my joy or just play it coy to keep everyone happy?
So that top octave actually ends in a harmony and adds a 3rd harmonic element so that all 3 of these layers are singing something different at the end.
Because I'm the only one not laughing.
The part that everyone is always complimenting me on is this post-chorus where all the vocals become layered. So the lead vocals are still layered exactly the same on either side.
Oh, in this town. In this town.
Something about it is so scary and haunting sometimes.
Oh, in this town.
I'm sure you've seen the memes about how altos only sing 1 note for their entire performance, and that's exactly what I did here. It's literally 1 note, but it plays so beautifully over these layers.
Oh, in this town.
The only way I could compare that to something that makes sense is like a vocoder. I mean, obviously, like an alto in a choir, they usually sing just 1 note, but it sounds beautiful. It just builds out that chord. Same with a vocoder. When you're using a vocoder in pop music, you're just building out that chord using a synth to play the vocals. And then there's a ton more layers. So these tenor vocals.
Oh, in this town.
So these tenor vocals are playing the same melody of the lead vocals towards the end. And then these tenor vocals at the bottom are playing a totally different melody. But the beginning of both are playing different melodies at different times. And what I layered those tenor vocals with, since they're playing the same note as the beginning of the lead vocals, is these falsetto vocals.
Oh, in this town.
That way, whenever the same note comes in, it doesn't feel like the same note. It feels like there's an extra harmony added on top. And then these soprano vocals, which add another harmony on top of the first tenor vocals.
Oh, in this town.
So altogether, all the vocals that we added sound like this.
Oh, in this town.
And then altogether, it sounds like this.
Oh, in this town. Oh, in
So I feel like I talked a whole lot in this video, but I really hope at least you learned something or you found this interesting in some way. I mean, you could take this as a tutorial, you could just find this entertaining to see how I made my songs, but I definitely want to keep doing more of this. I definitely want to keep showing you how I made my songs because I'm very, very proud of the production, and everything you see, everything you hear, it's all made by me. I've written every single one of my own songs. I've only co-written 2 of my songs. There's only 2 songs that I've ever called in a co-writer to help me write. So I'm very proud of those songs anyway, but I'm also proud of the other 73 songs that I've put out in the past 3 years that I've written all by myself. And the production, it's always me at the forefront. Occasionally I'll call in Brian to lay down some guitar or some bass or mandolin or harmonica or melodica, whatever needs to be added into a song. Sometimes I'll call him if I feel like he can do a better job than me, or if I want to see what ideas he has to bring to the table. But I'm always the one at the forefront of my music, and I'm always doing everything I can to make the best possible quality content that I can provide for you guys. So it just means the world that you're even supporting me, or you're here listening to this right now, watching this right now. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. Please make sure to like, subscribe, all the YouTube things, share with all of your friends. Please go stream my new single, This Town. I hope you guys all take care of yourselves. Goodbye.